Nope. Okay. Yeah, just tell us about your farm. And
Okay,
so, everybody, this is Taya Thomas of Royal Ocean Farms, and she has a farm in Windy Bay and is in wonderful Mexico rather than Cordova, and is going to talk to us about her farm.
thanks, Alicia. Yes, hi, my name is Taya Thomas. My partners and I, my partners Kale and Catherine Hirschleb and I own the Royal Ocean Kelp Company, and our farm is located in Windy Bay. I want to thank Alicia and the Prince William Sound Science Center for inviting me to this workshop. So the Mariculture Task Force was established in 2016, and one of the goals determined by the task force was to grow a $100 million mariculture industry in 20 years. To quote the task force report delivered to the governor in 2021, Alaska has all the qualities of an environment suited for mariculture development: clean and abundant waters, a reputation for sustainably managed resources, the skills and abilities of coastal Alaskans who work on the water, the cultural knowledge of Alaska natives, and an existing seafood industry and infrastructure. The report states that Alaska has clean and abundant waters, hardy citizens with maritime experience, and an existing seafood industry and infrastructure. This became a guiding principle for us. To make this industry work, we need to use our knowledge, our boats, and our existing infrastructure and equipment. Before we got started, I was able to speak with some of the kelp farmers from Kodiak and Southeast Alaska. I learned from them that there was a good chance that it would take 3 to 5 years just to break even with the kelp farm. Our goal was to use as much existing equipment as possible to keep expenses down. Right from the start, the cash outlay begins. There is the application fee, the DNR lease fee, the state of Alaska bond fee, and insurance. The application fee and the lease fee are based on the size of your farm. So right from the start, we were thinking small. Why go for a 20-acre farm with high fees? Since once you have an aquatic farm permit, it is rather straightforward to amend it, so you can increase the size or add species of kelp. Small was also considered when thinking about the anchors, lines, and buoys. Considering that the first few years of the farm we would be all cash outlay with very little return, we tried as much as possible to use existing equipment. This starts with a boat. If you have to buy one, I think I would reconsider my plan. Thank goodness both Kale and I have boats. A jet bowpicker has turned out to be really ideal for working the farm, and Cordova has lots of those. The first becomes obvious is transit times. We are going back and forth to the farm many, many times this season. A short distance from the harbor and a fast boat really helps. The next key piece of equipment are anchors. Since this is the foundation of the farm, one good option here are old train wheels, which are available in Anchorage for a reasonable price. They need to be a bit retrofitted, but this is a workable, low-cost option for anchors. Kale and I decided that this was the one area we were going to spend some money and opted for 300 and 500 pound Danforth anchors, new and used. The next piece of equipment is line. You need anchor lines, perimeter lines, grow lines, and buoy lines. Our very small farm, just 3 acres, uses close to 8,000 feet of line. Just imagine what this would be for a 20-acre farm. This becomes very expensive if you have to buy it all new. For the anchor and perimeter lines, we have used old purse seine lines. This has worked well. We were told that a good option for grow line is 3/8-inch neutral buoyancy line. We were able to find old halibut ground line that fit these specs. This is what we used our first year. It was not optimal, but it worked. For our second season, we did purchase some 3/8-inch line that was not so stretchy, but continue to use halibut ground line for some of our grow lines. The next thing you need is buoys, lots of buoys and buoy line. Through the kindness of many of our neighbors, we were given or bought almost all of our buoys used from around town for a very reduced price. Some people were just happy to get the old buoys out of their yards. We use A3 buoys, and they're very expensive. They cost about $100 each, and our farm is using about 40 of them. That would have cost over $4,000 just for buoys if we had to buy them. The old buoys all needed lines and snaps. These things we did buy. We opted for the inexpensive, easy splice blue line for buoy lines. Soon we realized that the only kind of snaps that worked were stainless steel. We have slowly, over the months, purchased all stainless steel snaps. The other new purchase were C-links. These are what the longline fishermen use to connect their ground lines, and they are what we use to connect our grow lines. They were not available used, and so we bought these new and again bought all stainless steel. So as you can see, we have used a mix of new and used equipment, but if we had had to purchase everything new, it would have cost us thousands of dollars more than it did. And there is so much gear lying around Cordova. I would highly encourage you to find and use as much existing equipment as possible, and only buy new when you have to or when you start making money and can replace old gear. Thank you. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Taya. That's awesome advice. Does anybody have any questions or comments or? Everybody's getting sleepy.
What was the biggest hurdle during the permit process for you, Taya?
Oh gosh, I think the biggest hurdle for me was, the description of the farm and the gear. I got some help from other people that had already put in a kelp farm permit application, and I've also shared mine. I'm happy to share our application with anybody. But the biggest hurdle for me really was the mapping. DNR and ADFNP wanted these very specific mapping systems that were frankly kind of over my head, and I never got it right with all the labeling. But in the end, they just helped me do it themselves. They had a GIS person on staff, and they actually helped me with the mapping. So it's kind of tough.
Thanks.
That's really cool. How about, so you're in Windy Bay. Can you tell us why you picked your site there?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. There was a little bit of pressure locally for me to pick a site in Simpson Bay. Some people thought that all the mariculture farms should be in Simpson Bay, and so I was looking at Simpson Bay, but there's a lot of glacial runoff in some of the streams there. And then somebody suggested, well, why don't you look at Windy Bay? There's already a history of mariculture farms. There have been at least 2 oyster farms in Windy Bay. Plus, there's no glacial runoff. It's just perfectly clear, beautiful water. So that's why we picked it. And it's close to town. In my bow picker, it takes me about 30 minutes to get there, which, I noticed that a lot of people have put in applications like in Port Esches and different places. I mean, you'll soon realize once you start going back and forth to the farm all the time that you spend a lot of time just getting there and getting back to town. So that was really also part of the decision to try and find someplace close. But Windy Bay's been a great spot, and I think as Caitlin said earlier, The idea that if you can look at these sites and see that kelp is growing naturally and well, chances are it's nutrient rich and that your kelp on the farm is going to grow well. And that's definitely been the case in Windy Bay. Our kelp is growing really well.
Any questions?
I have another question. So you're one of those awesome people who are both a commercial fisherman and a kelp farmer. Do you have any advice for kelp farmers from your commercial fishing hat?
Just that the idea of, if you already have a boat, it really helps. You don't want to have to start off this process, putting down 30 or $40,000 to buy a boat, as well as everything else. So I think being a commercial fisherman with all the knowledge of the water, the weather, the tides, everything has really helped. And but there's so many people in Cordova with all that knowledge and equipment. I think we're the perfect community to do this. So I would just say that commercial fishermen are, I think, have a step above everybody else when starting this process and to be a kelp farmer.
What about in terms of what Zeke talked about with potential conflicts between fishermen and kelp farmers? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I think Zeke is completely right on. I started my application in gosh, was it 2019 or 2020? And I didn't even think about that. And there was really no input from Fish and Game about that either. And so I really didn't know about it, but thank God where we are in Windy Bay, we are just inside the stream closure area. So we're not in an open seining area. So we're very grateful that that's how it worked out. But yeah, I think it's really important that people consider, talk to the local fishermen, find out where they make their hook hauls off these different points, and just make sure you're out of their way. And I thought he brought up a really good point about left gear. I know that in Windy Bay, left over from some of those oyster farms, there are anchors on the bottom. So I hope, as we move forward in this industry, that the kelp farmers are responsible, and if they move their farm, that they pick up all those anchors.